If you're new to lighting or thinking about getting started, there's probably a word that you've heard before, but maybe you didn't understand, and that is the word modifier. So a modifier is anything that we put on our light in order to change the character of the lighting. It could be an umbrella, it could be a softbox, or it could be a reflector. In today's video, I'm going to go over the three main types of modifiers so that you can get a good idea of how they function and how they change the character of your light. That way you'll be able to make an informed decision the next time you're on set. Before we get started, there are a few things that we need to go over. All of the modifiers that I'm going to be talking about today will work in continuous lights and they will work in flash units. So don't read into any of the words that I'm going to be using today. I might use the word flash or strobe or light. Don't think that that means anything. Just know that as long as your light can accept the modifier, you can use it as regardless of whether or not it's continuous or it's flash. So that's the first thing. The other thing we need to talk about are the two reasons why you would use a modifier in the first place. So if I take this umbrella off over here, this is what's referred to as bare bulb. If I turn it towards you, you'll see that the flash tube is really small and that it's sticking out a little bit. What that does is it causes the light to come out in a hemisphere. It's actually 140 degrees on this unit in every direction. It goes forward and it goes sideways and it goes diagonal. It goes everywhere. So if you can imagine that we were in a bedroom with orange walls and a dark wood floor, and I was trying to take your picture right now with this light, what would happen is that this light would hit you, but it would also hit all these other surfaces. And when it does that, it would pick up the color of those surfaces and bounce that color back towards you, and it would make your shadows orange or yellow if it comes off the floor. And so it's not really a good idea to have just the exposed flash tube. In fact, you probably would never have a bare exposed flash tube. The second reason why we would use a modifier is because we want to change the character of the light. So there is something called hard light and there is something called soft light. Hard light is going to make it so that there are going to be very abrupt differences between the midtones and the shadow. So if I had a really hard light source on my face right now, then the shadow from my nose would be a complete hard outline on my cheek here, and it would transition to shadow very abruptly on this side of my head. Also, there would be a lot of pore detail. You would see all of the wrinkles and it wouldn't be very flattering, and my skin would be really reflective. But if we had a soft light source, kind of like the light source I have on my face right now, the skin will be less reflective, the details will be less prevalent, and there will be more of a transition from the midtone to the shadow. Now, the way that we soften our light source is by making it larger, or, well, at least relative to the subject. You might have heard the phrase before that the larger the light source is relative to the subject, the softer it will be. Now, what the hell does that mean? I actually hate this phrase and I like putting it more in plain English because it would just be much easier for you to understand. The larger the light source looks to the subject, the softer it's going to be. So what I mean by that is if we take a photo right now with this light and you're the subject, the light source to you is only 2 inches across. So that is going to be maybe 5 centimeters or 2 inches. The light source is going to be very hard. It's going to be very unforgiving. But if I turn it around and then I grab my umbrella and I put my umbrella in here, now my light source is going to be much larger side to side. So what's going to happen is that the light from the flash tube is going to come out, it's going to fill the entire umbrella, and it's generally going to come forward. So by adding the umbrella, we've controlled the light, and now the light source is going to be softer because from your perspective, instead of the light source being 2 inches or 5 centimeters across, it's now 41 inches or 105 centimeters across. So this light source is going to be a lot softer. Let's talk about the umbrellas as well. So this is a white umbrella, and there are actually silver umbrellas and translucent umbrellas. White umbrellas are going to make fairly matte light on your subjects. What I mean by that is that if you have oil in the person's skin, it's going to be less reflective with a white umbrella, whereas with a silver umbrella, it will be more reflective. Silver will also have higher contrast than white. Translucent umbrellas, on the other hand, may soften the light because they make the light source larger, but the problem with them is they don't control the light. They still allow the light to go everywhere in the direction that the light is pointed. So for the most part, these umbrellas, the white ones and the silver ones, they do capture a lot of the light rays and force them forward, but just so you know, they still do spread out in every direction. It's just more directional. And you can also get a cover for these umbrellas, which is a piece of diffusion fabric or white fabric that goes on the front. And that's going to soften up the light even more and make them more like a softbox. But we'll go into that in just a second. If you want to see a deep dive that's all about umbrellas, I will link to a video that I made on that topic. So the next thing we're going to talk about are softboxes. And softboxes are sort of like camping tents. There are flexible poles that keep fabric under tension, and they all come together at one point. So I've sort of got mine here, and I've already taken it apart a little bit. This one is an Elinchrom 100 centimeter deep octabox. It's actually my favorite softbox. In fact, I'll link to all of the gear in the description if you want to check it out. And if you click on those links, that will actually help me out a little bit as well. So I've got mine partially disassembled already. There's 2 layers of fabric. I'm going to take the first layer off, the outside layer, and then you'll see that there's an inside layer as well, and I've got it halfway disconnected. But what happens is the light comes out of our flash tube, and then it hits this first layer of fabric and bounces around off of the surface in here. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to snap this back into position just so you can see how that works or how it looks. So what's going to happen is that our light source comes out, it hits the sides of the softbox, it bounces around, it hits the fabric, it bounces around some more, and it comes out of the fabric. So then what essentially is happening is that we're going from that 2-inch light source to maybe our 5 centimeter light source, and maybe we're getting up to a 70 centimeter or 27-inch light source. And so it's going to be much softer than it would be as a bare bulb flash, of course. Then it's going to enter a second chamber, which is going to be between 2 layers of fabric. So not all softboxes have 2 layers of fabric, but this one does. And when you have 2 layers of fabric, it's usually a softer, a better quality, softer softbox in general. I'm going to put this one back on, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay, so now that I have the second layer on, the light source is now going to be 100 centimeters instead of 70. That light is going to come out of that middle layer of fabric. It's going to bounce around in that second chamber, and then it's going to come out of this front piece of fabric. I'll show a comparison for you right now between an umbrella with a diffusion sock and a similarly sized softbox at about the same distance so that it appears the same size to the subject. And you can see that the light from the softbox is just higher quality, more balanced overall, and just looks better. So there is a big gap between the bare bulb flash and the umbrella, and a gap between the umbrella and the softbox, but it's not quite as big. But that is how softboxes and umbrellas compare. So the third modifier type that we're going to discuss are reflectors. This one is 15 centimeters or 7 inches, and it came for free with my light. This one is 8.3 inches or 21 centimeters, and it has a little lip in the front that allows it to take grids. Now, a grid is used to restrict the beam of the light coming out of the reflector so that you can control it a little bit more. By default, light is going to come out of these reflectors at about 45 degrees, give or take, and you can add in grids that will be somewhere between around 30, 20, and 10 degrees. Those are the more common sizes. Also, this size is a little large. It's more common that you would have a 7-inch or 18 centimeter grid reflector. So just know that is a little bit of a difference. I also have some beauty dishes up here that are between 70 and 44 centimeters or 28 inches and 44 centimeters. And then I also have some 40 centimeter or 15 centimeter larger deep reflectors down here. All of these hard metal reflectors are going to vaguely do the same thing. They're going to harness our light and they're going to push it forward. And in general, they're going to make the light source a little bit bigger, which will in turn make it a little softer. But just know that these modifiers here in my hand aren't going to make it that much softer, but a beauty dish or a larger 15 or 40 centimeter reflector down here, that is going to make a bigger difference and make it look a little bit different than bare bulb. But all of these nuances aren't really important. Just know that in general, the way these function is that they harness the light and push it forward, and they're very efficient at doing so, and they make the light brighter overall and control it so it's not hitting all of the surfaces in our room. And now I'm going to show you a comparison between bare bulb, the 8.3 inch or 21 centimeter reflector, the 41 inch or 105 centimeter umbrella, and the 39 inch or 100 centimeter deep octabox. And I've got them all positioned so that the modifier face is an arm's length away from me. It's fairly common that you're going to get your modifier in as close as possible without it being in the way, so that's why I feel that this is generally a fair test so that you can compare the modifiers. Also, I've got another test here so that you can see the same modifier so that they take up the same amount of my field of view. They all look the same size to me, but just know that it's going to be very unlikely that you're going to use them this way. It's far more likely that you're going to have them an arm's length or so from your subject. If you want to take your learning to the next level, you might consider joining the Academy with John Gress, my online members-only learning platform, where you'll get exclusive access to longer format tutorials than what you'll find here on YouTube. You'll get early access to my YouTube videos, and you can interact with me live on Zoom twice a month. And the content is curated so you can start with the fundamentals and then work your way up to more and more complicated scenarios. If you want to check it out, there's a 3-day free trial. Just go to johngress.com/academy. Well, I think that about wraps it up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those below. Also, I will link to all of the gear that I used in the video today. If you could please like, subscribe, and sign up for the bell, I would really appreciate it. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.